Hello, folks, and welcome to this rendition of Silly Skunts. My name is Forrest, and I will be doing the movie reviews for the channel. So, being that this is the first review, let's start it off with a classy film like The Hobbit, An Unexpected Journey. I categorize my reviews, believe it or not, because I like to be very organized and very professional. I categorize it under history, which would mainly be the production that went into the film and how it even came to occur. Then there's the direction, that basically talks about the director themselves and just whether or not they did a good job with it or not. And then we move right into the actual film when I talk about the plot, the cast, the visual effects. And, all these are put into a positive light, and then at the end it all turns bad. Just like an actual life. Starts out good and probably ends out bad. My life will be, at least. Anywho, and then it gets a verdict. And that'll be a 10 out of 10. I don't like doing that star shit. It's fucking pointless. So, let's start it off with The Hobbit. And what can we say about The Hobbit? Only that it is from Lord of the Rings. And everybody should know that Lord of the Rings is awesome. It has always been awesome and will still be awesome. I can say that because I've loved the shit since I've been a little grade school boy. Ever since the films came out, I've just been in love with them ever since. I'm one of those kind of kids who just always wanted to draw the weapons in class. I'm the one who always looked up images from the movie or looked up anything on Google Images when I was on a computer. And if you went home with me, you'd find that I would do basically nothing else but just watch the movies, play with the action figures, go on the PlayStation 2, and probably rock some Return of the King. Awesome stuff. But so, now that there's been a long year's span, it's time to revisit Middle-earth, and we go into The Hobbit. Now, of course, there's a big history to this. Peter Jackson, the man himself, is the director of this film, but he didn't want to be. From my understanding, he didn't necessarily want to be, but he just didn't feel like he was up to the task, because of many reasons, I'd imagine. But in this case, we do have him as the director. But beforehand, he was the producer and one of the writers of this new trilogy, amongst his extra collaborators, Philippa Boyens and Fran Walsh. But he also had other collaborators, other people who would have liked to step up to direct the film, and that is Sam Raimi, who you may know from the Evil Dead and Spider-Man movies, the old Spider-Man movies, and Guillermo del Toro, who did the Hellboy movies, and also is doing Pacific Rim, which looks freaking amazing. Now, when both those directors fell out because they just weren't up to doing it either, Peter just said, well, you know what, I'm gonna do it. Nobody else will, I'm gonna have to do it. And thank God he did, because he brings back that nostalgic feel. Not only does he just give us that good, wonderful taste of being back in Middle-earth, going back and doing the films, especially since he's the one who did them before. We're very grateful that he's willing to come back in the whole 10 yards just to make us feel proud to watch the film. Now, let's talk about the plot. What can we say about the plot? Is that it's based off a book, believe it or not. A book. The Hobbit. A very short one. It's like you can compare the actual Lord of the Rings book trilogy to the Hobbit book itself. It's only it only measures up to maybe 1/4 of what the whole trilogy was supposed to be written for. In this case, since we do get a trilogy out of just this one book, we get more and more and more stuff to admire the movie for. And by that I mean more characters, more extra story, and more connections with Lord of the Rings. I could go into detail about that, and I will, because unlike other reviewers, I will spoil stuff for you. I do not care. It's not a matter of hate, it's just a matter of getting my knowledge. So I give you my best answers. The plot mainly is about the book where Bilbo, young Bilbo, and Gandalf, slightly young Gandalf, are teamed up with a group of 13 dwarves who have to go and reclaim the Lonely Mountain. their land and their home, which has been taken away by the dragon Smaug, who's decided to live in there and bathe in their treasures. Now, in the film's case, it's that, but there's also the inclusion of a dark evil that decides to spread across Middle-earth. Dark magic is appearing in the forest areas, and a new character by the name of the Necromancer appears to be fucking things up for everybody. You would argue and say that, well, this sounds stupid. Why are they putting more and more things like this into the movie when they should have just left it out and just told the actual story of the Hobbit straight there and out? Well, for many reasons. One is that audiences would be bored by the story if you just went exactly by how the Hobbit was done by Tolkien, and that's no offense to the writer himself, but it's just audiences today, in this day and age, will not want to watch something like that. And probably because it's worth it. It really is worth it, because in the book, 13 dwarves, not that much character to them. But in this case, they're fledged out, majority of them. I mainly mean Thorin, Balin, Dwalin, Keely, Fili, and Bulfur are the few characters that actually spend some time in the film where you get to know, not necessarily a bit more about them, but they have more stuff to do. Thorin is definitely the prime example, being the leader of the dwarves. I didn't really think he was going to be that interesting of a character, because just from watching all the footage from commercials and the trailers and clips and stuff like that, I felt like this character was just going to be the dwarf version of Aragorn. But to my surprise, he seemed like his own character. Thorin has a good backstory in this. He has more of a better presence than he would have in The Hobbit, where it's just, oh, I'm leader, I'm angry, I'm selfish, I die, oh, I'm sorry, oh, I'm dead. No, there's more to it than that. In particular, his hatred against the orc Azog for killing his grandfather. But, you know, the more the merrier. The more I get to see of this, the better. Because, like I said, this film just adds so much to it that you just love. As for the casting, I can say that it doesn't get any better than having the original cast from the Lord of the Rings trilogy appear. A majority of them. The main ones being, you know, Gandalf, you know, played by Ian McKellen, Elrond, played by Hugo Weaving, because those characters actually appeared in the books. And every single person just nails their roles again, and they just make it better. I mean, Ian McKellen as Gandalf just kills it. He makes the character of Gandalf. I can never, ever, ever see anybody playing it better than him, and I don't think we ever will. I would say that Ian Holm returning as Bilbo is also a nice feel, as well as Elijah Wood coming back as Frodo for a tiny bit. And that may be true, but the main Bilbo, and also the main star of the film, really is the younger Bilbo, played by Martin Freeman, and I can say he does almost a better job, mainly because this is a Bilbo that we really appreciate. In Lord of the Rings, it's just, you know, he's an old hobbit, he's Frodo's uncle, he's important, he found the ring, that's about it. Here we get to learn more about who he actually was at a younger age, what he was like, and just how his character would create his presence in the outside world of Middle-earth, you know, outside of the Shire. And he just makes it perfect. He delivers such good humor. People were laughing at everything he was doing because he just makes all the humor in the film. And he definitely provides those more serious and dramatic bits. And now for another one that I have to say is Andy Serkis coming back as Gollum. Is a treat, if anything, because this was the thing I was waiting for. Reading the book, I say to myself, when this scene happens in the movie, it's going to be the key moment. It's going to be the highlight. And to my surprise, it was. It really was. This scene just had every little tiny detail and every added gesture put into it just to make it the best part of the movie. That, not to say that the rest of the movie would be crap without it. It's still good. It keeps you entertained for the 2 and maybe 3/4 hour long film that it is. But that's what people were waiting for. It really was. That's when you see the ring. That's when you see one of the biggest highlights in the Lord of the Rings trilogy. You know, that visual cornerstone of the character of Gollum coming back again was something that got people excited. I was excited, and we were blessed nonetheless, because they knew what they were doing. And now the visual effects we'll break into are just breathtaking. I mean, this is Lord of the Rings we're talking about. This is the type of film series where the visual effects will never, ever go out of style, and they're never gonna go bad in any spot. I mean, these are just brilliant pieces of art done by the people at Weta, who also help with the actual settings and the props and the costumes and character designs to just make this immersive, badass fantasy. The negatives I can say are that it dragged at the beginning, what was supposed to be the build-up. It didn't have Fellowship of the Ring type of build-up where, you know, you really get invested with everything that's going on. This just seemed like, hey, look at this, remember this, and then, oh, here comes the new thing, but oh, remember this, and then after that, you're just like, okay, we get it. Let's just go on and find more stuff to do. There's a quest, isn't there? A flippin' dragon is sleeping inside somebody's home. After that, it just keeps on getting better and better and better and better and better and better and better. The visuals of the film have a bit of a negative thing for me, where that there was just too much in the character visuals. I mean, Gollum is done visually, is, you know, makes sense. That's what he came to be. But then there's just like all the goblins, a majority of the orcs, the main one being Azog and the Goblin King. You know, those are cool characters, very good villains for your film, but it's just so much. Like, if you watched the Lord of the Rings trilogy and you were a fan of just all the work that was put into giving all those extras and the stuntmen and stuntwomen those types of props and costumes that they were supposed to wear and that makeup, you'll miss it, and you'll feel up. And I was mildly upset by that they relied a little bit too much on the CGI, but it's the kind of CGI that is just great to look at, so you can't entirely argue. The film ends at a spot I really wish it didn't, because I was tricked by advertising, and I haven't heard anybody say this yet, but I'll say it. I feel tricked, because I feel like this movie advertised Mirkwood a little bit too much, because you only get to see Mirkwood once, and it's pretty much the border of the Mirkwood forest. And, you know, they make action figures of Legolas. Orlando Bloom is going to be in these movies, but not in this one. If you're expecting to see Legolas appear in part 1, you're going to be disappointed like I was. And that's not to completely drag it out, but that's just something that kind of confused me a little bit as to why they would do that. That's just a fault out of the movie. That's just out of the poor advertising. Now, my final verdict for this movie is probably going to be an 8.5 out of 10.